you guys doing? Yes! I'd like to welcome you here to the Northwest Pinball and Arcade Show. My name is Chase. I run Geek Gamer TV, and welcome to the Geek Gamer TV stage. In case you're wondering what Geek Gamer TV is all about, we are about content creation. We make videos about gaming and geek stuff like PAX and E3 and that sort of thing, and of course pinball. So if you haven't had a chance yet to give us a follow on YouTube or Twitch, please do a search for Geek Gamer TV. How many of you, by a show of hands, have had a chance to play King Kong? Wow. Look at that, pretty good, eh? Well, you're gonna find out and learn about the making of King Kong, and so we got 5 guys up here to tell you all about it, and so many names. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. So here's the team from Stern Pinball to talk about King Kong. Woo.
Hello, thank you. I'm Keith Elwin, lead game designer of King Kong. Next to me, our mechanical engineer, Harrison Drake. Codist extraordinaire, Rick Naegele. Sound guy and native Tacoma in place, Jerry Thompson. And behind me, first pinball show, a voice artist we use all the time, Rick Zieff. So this is going to be different. Usually we go through and, figure out what we're going to do, but we're just kind of winging it. I haven't even seen this. So Harrison thought it was funny at our expo tournament or our expo presentation. He threw in some extra slides to throw me into the bus and make it awkward. So I said, you know what, just make the whole thing awkward.
It'll happen again.
Yes. So I'm seeing this as you guys are seeing it. Let's go. Oh yeah, the myth. Okay. Here's the first one he's doing. So we had to come up with a subtitle for King Kong, and basically we were just kind of throwing darts at the dartboard with different names, and the one George loved was The Myth of Terror Island, and I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds fine. And then the artists get back to me, he's like, I cannot center this. So we told Jeremy, what would you like it to be? And he's like, well, can we get rid of one of the words? So I was like, well, how about just Myth of Terror Island? And so, of course, we spent like a week going back and forth until everybody finally agreed, yes, Myth of Terror Island, it shall be.
Biggest fight of the project by a mile.
This was early concept work. Using AI, we say, hey, give us, some colors of New York and the island we'll be using. So strictly just to give a color palette to Kevin O'Connor. Nothing else, but this is kind of just where the project started on day one. So Kevin started the project. He drew out some characters. We got Jack Driscoll, Carl Denham, totally not Vincent Price, and Darrow. And then this is our first kind of colorized concept of King Kong. So this was Kevin's, this is what he should look like. This is kind of the mood lighting he's in when he's on the island. And Harrison printed this little 3D print of the Kong head. And we were just practicing lighting it up and just seeing what it would look like with ambient lighting.
Yeah, part of the stylized look was going to be that really aggressive edge lighting on Kong, so we had to make sure, it's straightforward to do that in art, but to bring that into 3D space for toy sculpts on the Playfield, we had to kind of dial in that look and all the lines and ridges of his face, just to make sure that they matched between, 2D and 3D mediums.
And obviously the tough part of this is we couldn't make Kong look like any other Kong. So it couldn't look like Universal Kong, it couldn't look like the RKO Pictures Kong, couldn't look like there's so many iterations of Kong. It couldn't look like Donkey Kong, it couldn't look like, there was actually a King Kong comics where he was blue. And so we had to avoid all that and just kind of make him as much our own as we could. So that took a lot of back and forth and finessing. This is where we landed.
Speaking of Blue Kong.
Yeah, we tried some different things. I wasn't a fan of the Blue Kong, so we settled on kind of the black and gray. Here's different concepts of the gong housing and the gong itself. It was, I think we settled on the one on the right. Yeah, went for more of a Mayan look rather than Aztec.
You can kind of see it in this image too, but you know, when Kevin was doing the first concept images for the gong, he just immediately went to putting every single you know, project employee's initials embossed into the stone across the front. So I'm sure you can figure out a couple of these. He actually forgot Rick and Jerry on the initial one. So they're on the left side. If you look on a real sculpt, there's an RN around the corner.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was just a rumor that Rick quit.
Yeah, Rick-
because he was still there. He's still there.
Yeah.
Biplane, obviously these are our concept sketches that we presented to the licensor, and you're wondering who the licensor is. It's Zieff and George in this project. So we basically treated it just like a licensed game where, you know, the artist would say, well, this is what I want to do, and then we'll present it to George and Zieff, and they would argue back and forth for a week, and then we'll just land somewhere in the middle. Let's make a decision, guys, and then this is, you know, where we landed. Stylized, kind of a World War I-ish biplane, and we wanted the spider to kind of stick out in that mostly green and brown area, so we went with the blue, which I initially was skeptical of, but once I saw it in the game, I was like, oh, actually, this really does stand out, and I'm glad we did that.
This was actual feedback I got from our molding company, this is like the baby got back licensor feedback. Spider's butt's too big, make it smaller. Okay, can do. Yeah.
All right, let's talk Playfield development. What do we got? Oh yeah. Probably really hard to see on your monitors, but we basically, you'll see some videos later, I believe, of how this Playfield was born. The Playfield didn't change a whole lot because it was basically designed around the upper right area, the little punchback area, and we just kind of filled it in with other shots as we went. You know, we tried a couple things that didn't work on the kind of in the middle, top middle, until we finally got that geometry right. And then by the time we got all the way to the right there, that's pretty much our finished CAD file.
Yeah, a full left to full right on this is about 9 months of development work.
Yeah, you can see there used to be a pop bumper and a scoop where now the spider pit is.
Yeah, this has the old gong on it too on the second image. I'll show you some close-ups of those. But, all right, this is we call this Whitewood Zero. So this is Keith and I kind of hacking together like a minimum viable shootable game to test some of the early geometry.
So as you can see, that shot, the upper right area, was originally a little 180 ramp. So you'd shoot the little loop there, it would fire up the ramp, and I was like, oh, this is awesome, this is fun, this is totally cool. So it's like, yeah, Harrison, let's do this. And then, you know, of course, everything that works great in a Whitewood, then you get actual production parts, and then, do we have that video?
No, we don't have that one, yeah.
Okay. We put actual production parts in there, and this shot would work maybe once every 10 shots. So I was like, all right, that's not going to work.
Yeah, there was a 2-exit diverter system built into that ramp as well at one point that really added to the clunk. So we built it, it couldn't stay.
Yeah, so did some iteration and ended up with what we now have is the punchback target. This is us testing our river. As you can see, when you shoot the ball at the middle, it comes flying around there, so I needed a way to slow it down. So I was like, well, how can I thematically slow it down? So I figured, well, there's a river, there's a chasm in the King Kong story, so I came up with a little zigzag thing like you'd see in some of the old 70s games that, ball would be kind of floating down like on a knockout, just visually cool. And so we try to keep it that as visible as possible by making that whole sculpt translucent and keeping the plastic above it clear.
Ooh, there we go.
Original Kong concepts. Originally the Kong was going to be on a motor and go up and down. It would have a magnet. It kind of grab the magnet there and then kind of throw it through a loop back to the upper right flipper. But it was not fun to shoot at all. It was just kind of, the ball would just kind of hit it and would just drop dead. I was like, well, this kind of sucks. So we went back to the drawing board on that. Yeah, so this is me taking an Elvira spider and see if I get some free motion out of the magnet that we had over there. So yeah, we got a piece of spring steel, we attached the spider to it just to see what would happen, if we put the spider just above the ball, if we can get the spider to grab, the illusion of grabbing the ball.
This is the...
Oh yeah, this is an early iteration where we had the spider on a spring, and yeah, it didn't work as well.
the itsy bitsy spider version.
Yeah. You thought the other one moved a lot and looked weird. That one was really bad. But George loves this one. He's like, oh yeah, 'cause George loves free motion you can get out of an existing mech. So yeah, that was an easy sell to him.
There we go.
So this is our first official Whitewood. So everything you saw before was what we call Whitewood Zero. That's just me and Harrison screwing screws into a piece of wood and attaching flippers, much like you would do a homebrew. Hand bending ball guys for the most part, just mostly recycled from other Whitewoods. And so this is the first one we actually built with actual parts. Anything else?
So like really turn that.
Oh yeah, this is so. As you can see, we have some foam core trains there. George wanted a train there. He wanted to come to smash a train. So I just took some foam core pieces and mocked it up just to see how visible this would be. And he was like, all right, yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, part of the issue with how the Kong sculpt was going to work was he's cut off at the waist, and there's not really a visual excuse for why he doesn't have legs anymore. Pretty brutal time on Terror Island if that happens. So, half of pinball is creating the world under glass, right? So Kong looming over a train line, right, leads to some nice gameplay elements, but also gives some nice visual excuses for where, kind of the sculpts end and the reality sets in of like, yeah, you can't have legs, right?
Yeah.
All right, so this was early Kong stuff. So initially, kind of the goal I had in mind was full overhand throw of a pinball. So just a quick mock-up mech that I've had running on my desk, which was it had a shoulder and an elbow and a hand, if that makes sense. Pretty complicated mech. I'm sure Rick would have absolutely killed me if we had actually shipped this. We had them holding balls, but the coordination to actually get overhand throw was going to be quite difficult. You can get one playfield to do anything. To get 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 of these things to do them off the line, that's pretty darn hard. So this was a mech that we can do anything. That doesn't mean we should. So from here we kind of iterated into the Kong that you have now. One of the quirky things, right, is you're making everything all at the same time. You don't start with a King Kong sculpt, so sometimes you have to come up with some placeholders. The Stern Pinball CAD network is rife with placeholder CAD models, so I pulled some Big Buck Hunter CAD as a reference for the Kong placeholder. So we ended up with Robo Deer.
That one ended up on my game, I think.
Yeah, I think Rick got that one for a little bit. If anyone's curious, the Big Buck Hunter Deer, that is the actual CAD model that is in our network. I just 3D printed it and stuck it on the Gorilla. So, yeah. Here's a bit of behind the scenes of how the animation pipeline works for Kong. So our systems team worked pretty darn hard and developed a Blender-based pipeline for doing all of the animations for Kong digitally, so we can test them, iterate them, make sure they're up to what Keith and Rick are looking for, and then ultimately that data gets processed into stuff that we can deploy to the game code and runs on the Spike system. So this is kind of a back and forth of the digital version versus the real physical manifestation of what that animation looks like. The test fixture, of course, turned into Keith's fan club. which is, you know, a good benchmark of how repeatable some of these things have been.
And this is the pre-disco light version.
Yeah. So
this just kept growing and growing.
our lab tech loves upgrading our test fixtures, so of course,
there we go.
Yeah, we get some disco lights in the YMCA. Yeah, these guys have been doing this for about 6 months now, so it's 1 million YMCA's in a row. So, no, thank you. All right, here's your time to shine, Rick.
All right. So these guys make up Playfield, and then basically turn it over to me, and then I start coding this fast. Actually,
Pay no attention to the clock at the top.
don't look at the clock at the time. It's actually time lapse. But this is me actually coding the selection screen for the game. Took about 2 hours, and that's basically just filling out a bunch of stuff, copying Godzilla's selection screen and moving it over to this game. But this is all we do. We just sit around and make code for the game based off of Keith's design. Me and Josh Henderson was my number 2 on this project, so he came up with a lot of the rules, a little bit of himself, in addition to with what Keith had on the design document. So so that's pretty much my process there, is just going here, and you can see a little bit later on I'll get into like debugging stuff live and compiling stuff, but basically I just compile here and then go back to the drawing board if there's an error or something, and then once I get going, then run the game here. And then the game runs or crashes, and then I have to go back and fix something. That's basically my process, and then that leads into other stuff that bringing in Jerry's stuff.
He's the glue. He's underselling it. He's the glue that holds it all together.
Yeah, it's a lot of bringing in assets from the artist, bringing in assets from Jerry and what Rick do, and then throwing it all in the game and seeing what sticks. Having Keith play it and come up with it. This is the first mode that we had running in the game. It's just basically a shoot everything mode, but I fill out the skeleton and then send it to Josh, and then he'll actually put the real rules in. Next one.
Yeah, pretty much every mode is exactly the same on day one.
Yeah, and if you play that one again, you can see the background video is always the same in all of our modes for the first game. It's the Iron Maiden cloud. It's just always been in the game, and we just keep on copying it to the next game, and it serves as our placeholder backup for the initial game. And then this next video is it's the Whitewood one. This is our basically our Deadeye mode, but it's using assets from Avengers, the gamma ray assets because it had an eye in it. So I was like, oh, this is themed perfectly. So we'll just use this as our placeholder until we get like final assets from the guys. This is before we had any of the jackpot stuff in there, so it's kind of rough, but I got the concept down, and you just basically keep plunging skill shots until the time's up.
Yeah, a lot of both on the playfield and software side of things, a lot of the early stuff is all just like kit bashed out of whatever's on the Stern network. So finding stuff, adapting it to what it needs, to fill this one specific spot until the real stuff shows up later.
Oh, I'm stuck in art. All right. Here's our initial. I think this was the Pro. Yeah. So the initial concepts from Kevin O'Connor. That's the Pro. This is the whole Terror Island motif. As you can see, it's fairly close to what we ended up with.
Yeah, so we had 3 artists on this project over the course of it. So Kevin O'Connor did a lot of the conceptual work and ideation work. Greg Ferris, legendary Greg Ferris, handled a lot of the playfield art development. And then, Zombie Eddie, Jeremy Packer, the busiest man in pinball, came in at the end to tighten everything up, get it up to standards, get it ready for production, and that's ultimately what ended up. So it was a real, kind of 3-pronged approach for developing ideas, refining them down, and then getting them to production grade.
Yeah, unfortunately, Kevin had knee surgery, and he just kind of dropped off for a while, and we're like, where'd you go, bud? And then that's when he told us. So then that's when Greg and Jeremy kind of jumped in to help push it across the finish line. This is the original LE concept. You see the back glass is, it's fairly close. We didn't like the bottom cabinet art sides. But the back box, I think, is pretty close to what we ended up with. So Jeremy just completely redrew the cabinet bottoms from scratch. This is Kevin's concept for the glass, and you can see it's mostly pretty close to what we ended up with. More concept.
This eventually became the premium package. It's pretty common for us to musical chairs art around between models.
And pay no attention to what Kong's doing on the lower playfield there. Use your imagination. What do we got? Oh, this was
Yeah, go to that one.
Jeremy's initial premium. I think it was fairly close. Yeah, different colors.
Yeah, almost all the artists these days do rough pencil sketches to get composition, size, scale, proportion all nailed down. And then when they go in, they'll do hard line ink work, which kind of this side by side, you can see just the level of resolution that gets brought in when that ink work happens. And then colors, ultimately the final pass. Jeremy does a lot of his work kind of value forward to get the contrast between characters and background dialed in early, and then comes in and fills that in with color near the end. Godzilla 70, it's actually a prime example of that. So, it was originally a color game first, that's what launched first, but when we go in to do Godzilla 70th, he's already done the entire value level pass for the entire art package. So to translate his work back to a black and white package, most of the difficult artistic decisions get made regardless if it's going to end up as a black and white or color to begin with. And this is kind of an example of where he's working on that for Kong. There's no black and white Kong coming, just to be clear.
For now.
There was a gold one though.
Yes, so this was one of our initial, this is actually using a gold foil. We tried that out on the LE, and it looks better in this picture than it did in person, I will say, but none of us really liked it that much, so we went with the foil color. Oh yeah, here's the, so you can see basically on the left is a montage of Kevin O'Connor's old 1989 King Kong. He left that in the middle, pretty much the entire project until Jeremy finished it off. But the whole bottom concept was an homage to Kevin O'Connor working on that King Kong game from 1989 that never got released. So when we found out we were working with him, we're like, if you want to keep that same, the same artwork, basically the same layout as what we had in 1989. I said, go for it. I'll arrange the inserts in a very similar fashion. And he's like, oh yeah, that'd be awesome. So, he finally got to see his drawing come to life that he made so long ago.
All right, your time to shine.
So, Keith, all of us have done many games together, so we kind of know what each other expects. And Keith is very involved in the sound of his games with music placement. And so, we talk about what do you think this should sound like, and I take my ideas of what I think it should be like. And I've been working with a guy named Sean Myers since my first game, Ghostbusters, 10 years ago. And he's done a lot of music, but he's super busy these days with other things. And so for this project, I started reaching out to new composers that I hadn't worked with. So we probably have like a dozen people who did tunes for the game. And then we picked the 2 or 3 that we liked the most and got 3 or 4 more from them. So there's an abundance of music you've never heard and may not hear. I don't know. Maybe we'll throw in a cutting room floor music part of the DJ mixer. But so Keith kind of gave me his idea of what he wanted the main play song to sound like. And Sean did that, and then I gave the guys. I prefer to not tell somebody exactly what I want from them. I gave them an idea of what, like maybe an old example of 50s monster movies, Creature from the Black Lagoon, stuff like that. And then also you're going to need to be in New York City at some point. So, and then just let them see what they come up with, because, you know, I find you give creative people license, and most of the time it's better than you would ask for anyway. So we have some really good music in the game. I'm proud of that. And then, so I get a whitewood just like the other guys and like you've seen here. And I look at that. Sometimes I have art to start with, and if I don't, I make sounds for every switch, target, all the stuff that you need basic sounds for. And then if the art comes later, then I will revise those sounds to match the art. But luckily this time Greg had done his main sketch of the Playfield art, so I got to see the river area, you know, the truck hauling bananas in the upper right orbit there, and kind of know what the areas were going to be. So I made all those sounds, and we talked about those, and then Keith said, well, I know I want Rick Zieff again, because Rick, this guy, has been with us. I worked on Batman with Lyman Sheets and George Gomez, and we had Adam West and Burt Ward to do voice work, but we needed somebody to sound like William Dozier because he had passed away. He was the guy, the narrator, you know, on a Saturday morning in Gotham City. So I put out a search for talent for somebody who could sound like him, and I got 45 auditions, and only one guy sounded like him, and that was this guy.
They were awful. Jerry shared those with me. I was like, this guy sounds nothing like.
Oh yeah, some of them. It's like, why did you bother?
Yeah.
And so Keith and I both own a Batman, and he liked Rick's work, and then so we worked on Iron Maiden together. That was our first game together, and he's like, how about that guy that was in Batman to do Beast? So this is also the voice of the evil Beast in Iron Maiden, and lots of other. You'll hear some others.
We've got a bit of a montage of Rick Zieff's career.
His Keith Elwin career. Or you have more.
We have the whole career.
Oh yeah,
I've never seen this. I'm not sure he's aware about what I'm. Okay, so once you know his voice, you're gonna hear it.
How is this chili's 3 for me only $10.99 when fast food is so expensive?
Get ready for
Maybe
it.
because we don't have to pay for any mascots.
Please! I was born for this! Please! I do a song! I want my baby back, baby back.
Oh, we got one more. We got one more. Man of many talents. He's got chili.
Oh, this one is perfect!
Not as perfect as this one.
That is not a mango, Lenny.
No, but this mango hint water tastes just like mango, and with no calories or sweetness.
How can water taste just like fruit?
How can our feet look just like our
Lemur
hands?
definitely said whamps before. Here's a bit of a taste of his career over the Elwin machines. What's this, please? Right?
You want your soul back. You have to go through me. Give in.
Bring it up.
Beast. More like sight of licorice. Welcome to Jurassic Park. You're now entering the Triceratops Park. T-Rexes are extremely aggressive. The fences are failing all over the park. Get the remaining goats to the helipad. That's how to get this done.
This is a special report live from Tokyo. Monsters are rampaging through the city. Can Godzilla stop those tanks before they take him down?
Godzilla's rage seems to be increasing. The Tesla generator's wires are overloading.
This is the Exilian controller. To ensure your cooperation, we have stationed monsters near your major cities.
Time is running out for the human race.
Choose your monster. K.O. I'm afraid the mission is a complete failure.
King Kong, Mists of Terror Island. Brought to you by Stern Pinball. Grab your decoder ring, kids. It's time for Gary Stern's secret message. Buy a topper.
Welcome on the island.
Hearing all that put together is kind of wild.
Well, I guess you didn't need to be here. We just heard it all.
So this is Rick's. It's your first time hearing your own voice inside the game, right?
That's true. I tried hearing them on the floor. It was so loud out there. I was like, I couldn't hear anything. That was the first time I've heard me. So thank you for witnessing that first hearing. Yeah.
So you can see why Keith wants to use him on every game we can.
Well, he's so easy to work with. He he's like, oh, that takes suck. No, that sucked. No, I can do better than that. No, how about if I do this? So he's pretty much self-coaching. So
Well, it's great because when we do the recording sessions, Keith and Jerry give me context, what's happening in the scene. You have to remember, when you're doing voiceover, you're in a quiet little booth by yourself. You don't hear music and sound effects that you hear in gameplay. Contextually, when someone's talking really loud and the city's being destroyed, you're feeling it. But when you're alone in a booth, it's like, I always think of the guy who goes, Sunday, Sunday! He's just by himself in a booth screaming his head off. There's no music or truck noise, So these guys give me great context of what's happening in the scene, so I can find the voice and find the right level of emotion and projection for any given moment. So it's pretty easy to work with these guys too.
Well, and he's great at ad-libbing too. A lot of the stuff that ends up in the game is not on the script.
Yeah.
So we sit there and think, what else funny could we say?
It's funny because I'll say, okay, this is the announcer role for Godzilla. And he'll be, okay, Raymond Burr. He'll be 3 or 4 different voices. No, Raymond Burr. And then Jerry will be like, oh, you're getting out of Raymond Burr. He's like, oh yeah, okay, so Raymond Burr.
I don't remember if the Biotopper was on the script or not. I don't.
I told him that.
Somebody,
There's going to be more secret messages.
On the flipper buttons on Godzilla, it's like, put your shoes back on, and people are like, what does that mean? They go, I don't know. He just said it.
We do a lot of weird ad-libbing in those sessions and Easter eggs, and we make fun of a lot of the Stern folk, I guess.
There are some messages for the design team that are making fun of all of us.
And then the good golly, Miss Molly double jackpot. That was just all lived from him.
So we have fun making. I think that's what you can tell in Keith's games. The fun comes through. So what you
tell it to Dreyfus?
Yeah, I was not involved in that one. So you said you had some stuff that we didn't know about that you're gonna. Let's talk about I saw your page though with the other voice talent. So let's talk about them. These are some really great talents that Rick knows, and you might recognize one of these guys from TV. You go ahead.
Oh yeah, so a couple of these guys. On the far right, you'll see the 3 folks. The guy in the front with the green plaid shirt is a guy named Peter McKenzie. If any of you guys are a fan of the sitcom Blackish, anybody watch that show? So he was the guy that ran the agency. And some of you old-timers might recognize him from Herman's Head. Anyone remember that show? That's the guy from Herman's Head, the sort of nerdy dude.
He's Carl Denham in the game, the movie director.
The guy next to him in that shot, but also on the far left, Scott Mosenson, another veteran TV actor, recurs on lots of sitcoms you've seen, Blackish and Curb Your Enthusiasm and all kinds of shows. The beautiful young lady in the bottom is my glorious daughter, Katie Zieff, who is been doing voiceovers since she was tiny. One of her first jobs was playing a recurring character on Sophia the First, if you remember that show. She was a sorceress, and she got to sing some fun Disney songs. That's me in the Red Hawaiian. Brian?
Yeah, from Impractical Jokers, Brian Quinn. Just one of those behind-the-scenes things, how the magic of pinball happens. Our board vice president and his wife are here, Brian and Shirley Katie. So wave at everybody there. So I was at Brian's house picking up a pinball part one afternoon, and Keith messaged me. He's like, hey, we need some people chanting Kong, so at the end of the game, I don't know if you guys have, you see Kong beating his chest, and you hear Kong, 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 and it was on the trailer too. That so I said to Brian and Shirley, I said, hey, let's all say Kong, and I'm just going to layer it 4 or 5 times to sound like a lot of people. So that was done at their kitchen table on my phone and made it into the game. So yes, that's the magic of pinball.
It's very similar to the Mothra call.
Oh yeah.
So we couldn't use the Mothra, the two ladies who sing Mothra. So it's like, Jerry, can you give me something similar? And so
I was like, yeah, let me get somebody to sing it. So this is a fun job. It's a lot of work, but it's also fun, and especially if you love pinball the way we all do. What else you got there? You got the hidden stuff you're talking about?
That's about it.
I have one little piece of trivia. So I wanted to, this is my first convention in conference to come, and I wanted to, wear a shirt that would have some like skull thing for Kong. And I went to the back of my closet and I found a shirt with a skull. Down here. See that? Yeah. Okay. And it's so old. This was my costume when I worked in Skynet. Terminator 3. This is how old this shirt is. I pulled it out today. There we go.
So with that, we have some time for Q&A. So we'd ask if you guys could line up on the right here if you have any questions for the mic, so they get captured on stream. And we'll answer anything you throw at us.
Within reason.
Within reason.
Don't be shy.
I don't know. Bueller?
Cool.
Here we go. The first video.
Oh, we got one.
Hey, thank you for the talk. I've always wondered, when you're going from like a whitewood or something, and you were going to production hardware, a lot of those shots probably, the feel changes. How do you do the tuning? How do you make something feel good again once you're going different parts, different hardware?
It's a bane of my existence. So when we're prototyping, we're generally dealing with hand-bent parts on a piece of, basically a piece of plywood. Sometimes it'll have a little bit of clear coat, sometimes not. And then we'll get actual production parts in, we'll put them in, and it plays completely different. So one of the things I've learned over the years, in my 8 years at Stern Pinball, is if a shot works the first couple times, I don't think it's always going to work. So what I do now is, like what you saw with the little loop shot that went to a ramp, which worked great when we hand built it, put it on a piece of plywood, and then when you have inserts and then dirt starts getting in the ball paths and the flippers start to wear out, all of a sudden that shot doesn't work. So that's one of the biggest things I've learned is, okay, this shot works great, but keep shooting it every day. Shoot it 20, 30 times. I'd rub my hands on the playfield just to add dirt to it and say, okay, does this still work now? 3 weeks later after shooting this shot and it's all dirty, okay, then now it's fine. Because it'll drive you nuts because the shot will work great. You'll clean and wax the playfield, then all of a sudden, the shot's all over the place. So
we even keep like the flippers turned down on some of the whitewoods just to simulate, game 5,000, game 10,000 if it's on location, right? Because stuff breaks, so there's variation, right? You need to hit that lowest acceptable, machine that would still be up and running out on the street.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So speaking about Stern Pinball, the most beautiful machine that your company has ever created, for me personally, Strong Legacy, right? The movie was not that good, but the pinball was amazing. Right? Let's put that over. Any possibilities that we're gonna see the first Tron or something about that machine? Because the layout, it's beautiful. It's super nice, and it's really, as pinball collectors here can tell you, it's really hard to get. So I'm like, after watching Batman, The Dark Knight, yeah, the first machine was okay, but Batman 77, oh wow, whoa, we love it, right? Like maybe something like that can be done with Tron.
So I will tell you,
Lord of the Rings.
I will tell you, dealing with licensors is if they have a license with many different movies, they're always going to push the latest movie. So I would love to do a Tron 1 myself. But, they're going to be like, no, Tron 3's coming out. You got to do this one. So not that this is happening, but that's usually how the licensing world works.
Oh, it's already on Pinside.
Somebody's writing it right now. That new Tron trailer was pretty darn cool. If you guys saw the trailer where he cuts the cop car in half, yeah, okay. That was pretty sweet.
All right, well, thanks for coming, guys. Really entertaining. I have a question about the scripting or the story behind your game, Kong. So the character Ann Darrow, in the original story, she's sort of this weak, like, damsel in distress. Was that something that you had to deal with? Like, do we play her that way? Do we write her that way? Or do we have her as a more sort of strong character?
Yeah, so the whole not having Anne in distress was, Zieff was pretty adamant from the beginning that, in order to further make this our version of Kong, he didn't want to have her in distress. Doesn't mean she can't be scared, or, obviously she's going to be scared, but she can't just be, oh, I'm useless, come save me. So it was decided early on to give her more of a Tomb Raider aesthetic. She's there on her own accord. She's not like kidnapped to be in this movie. So we worked with the same scriptwriter that did Dungeons and Dragons, so he incorporated that into the script, having her more of a leader and less of a come save me type. So yeah. Thanks.
Have you started production on your next machine yet?
Kinda. I'm a little behind.
He's behind is the guy that is downstream of him.
Yeah, I'm a little behind. Life catches up to you at some point, but I usually try to work ahead. But yeah, a little behind right now. So the answer is, it's in my head.
That doesn't help me.
Hey guys, thanks for being here. My question was, when it comes to licensing, do companies approach you? Do you guys reach out to the company? Does it kind of come with fan love? Like maybe King Kong got on because Godzilla did so good. Does these things come into play?
Usually, I don't know how they all approach. Sometimes, the game designer really wants to do this license, so we'll go look into it. Other times, like the licensing conventions, Jody will go there and he'll come back. Oh, I got these three guys want to make a pinball machine, and it's just kind of a balance. In the case of Kong, this is one of George's dream themes. And he's like, oh, we got to do both Godzilla and Kong, and so it's just his. Oh, we got to do this. We got to do this. So I think that was his. He willed this into fruition.
You guys have a lot of choice on the designs that you choose then, yeah?
It depends. Sometimes, like in the case of Avengers, that was like, we need to do this. It has to be out within 6 months. So I was actually working on Godzilla at the time, so I had to shelf Godzilla and hurry up and do Avengers, and then went back to Godzilla. So it's always different, In the case of Jaws, Jody says, well, I got Jaws. I'm like, yep, I'll take it. So.
Well, we need to start a World of Warcraft game petition one day.
There's a funny kind of, so we actually got approached for Metallica to do remastered because they saw Iron Maiden and were pissed that the Iron Maiden had an LCD and better sound, and they're like, why doesn't our game look like that? So that's kind of where Metallica Remastered came from. So it goes both ways.
All right, well, I'm going to get Blizzard to talk to you guys. We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, my question is actually more specifically towards you, Mr. Keith Elwin.
Okay.
As many of us may or may not know, the blueprints initially for Iron Maiden were actually going to be Archer, if I remember correctly. Was that right? If the opportunity were to arise again, for any reason at all, it doesn't matter how realistic it may be or not, would you perhaps reconsider an Archer-themed pinball machine? Or is it just now completely...
I think it's a little dead now.
It's a little dead now?
Yeah. I mean, I love the show. I would love to do it, but...
That's just my father. It's a really good show.
Yeah, it's... The problem is, it's been off the air for a couple years now, and the last couple seasons weren't really that great. So, I don't picture that ever happening, but yes, I would still love to do it, to answer your question.
It's just that the time frame for it has kind of passed.
Yeah. If it didn't happen right when I get hired, I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
All right, thank you.
So I don't have necessarily a question. I just want to let you know, Keith, that I look up to you a lot, and I think that you make some really good games.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good one.
Thank you.
Hey guys, super happy that you're here today. I just wanted to know if you change your ideas between games on who your ideal customer is for that particular game. In other words, like, are you looking when you're developing King Kong? Are you doing it for the person who's going to buy it and have it at home? Or are you trying to thread the needle between that and having it on location? Like, what does that look like? Identifying your customer.
That's a really good question. So I definitely have to consider this. So if I'm doing a title that I don't think people are going to buy strictly on the license, and I'll give you the example of King Kong, Avengers. I will try to make the game special in other ways. It's like, okay, this game's gonna be really deep in rules. It's gonna be, a unique shooting game. In the case of Jaws, I knew, okay, this game is going to sell on licenses. It's going to be an older demographic for the most part. So I want to make an easier shooting game, pretty easy to understand. Because, yeah, it's a tough balance. That's your question is tough, and I have to deal with that all the time. I sometimes have to catch myself. I'll write roll to Rick, and then Rick starts asking me, well, what's this mean? What's this do? And I was like, okay, this is probably too complicated. Dial it back. And so, yeah, I have to approach every game how I think it's targeted to, who is targeted to the player level that's going to be playing it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Angela.
Hi. I was just wondering about your when you're designing a game, what factor, if at all, with game time and average ball time, as an operator myself, I know that Williams always aimed for the 3 minutes roughly, and I can tell in Medieval Madness, Adam's Family, that my good earning games like that, old ones, do that, and your games earn very well as well. And I was just wondering if that factors into your design, or you just let it be and then Rick can alter that and finesse it with his software, or how exactly do you approach it?
That's always tough because I'll take Kong for example. I thought it played really easy, and then Harrison will play, this is the hardest game you've ever made. I can't keep the ball in play. And so then I get in my own head, and I was like, oh, okay, so we default to lower the position of the right out lane by 1. It's like, all right, now, and then give it the Harrison test, and he was like, oh, okay, this is fine. He hates the left out lane. So we kind of redid it a little bit, where we took the rubber out of the in lane but lowered the left out lane post down, and it kind of made it just more variety in that area, so it can go all the way over to the left more often. It made the skill shots easier. But then we scooched that little the leap of faith post over just a little scotch, and I think we found a good balance. I know it does play long, I think a little bit, but if you just can't make a brutal game and expect a casual player to just keep coming up for more. You got to get them hooked.
There's that pad.
Yeah, we also have the target game time ball saves. So I don't know actually where you get multiple ball saves, and the length of the ball saver is based on how long you've been playing to that point. So if you have a house ball on ball 1, your ball saver on ball 2 and ball 3 is going to be much longer. That's something we patented with.
He literally has the patent on that.
It's something we did on Jurassic Park, just to give, because I see it all the time. Casual player comes up, instantly drains, and it's like, okay, that's a ripoff. But at least this way, we have a target game time you can set in the settings, and I think it's default 90 seconds, and you can put that up or dial it down any way you want. All right, thanks.
I think he's going for the
He's bathroom or question, yeah.
Less of a question, more of a general comment. I could ask a lot of questions about how did this team come to be, but it's at this point it's multifactorial. I'm sure there's tons of things that went into this, but the bottom line is the team that you guys have is magic. It's totally changed pinball. I want to just say thank you.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We just showed up today. They did a plan up in the hard,
The Steve Ritchie approach.
Yeah. It just from what I hear, George was planning on succession at Stern, so he wanted to hire a new designer. Well, that was me. He's like, okay, we have a new designer, but now we're short an engineer and a software guy. So we all got kind of hired in the same 2-month window. And then George was like, you guys hang out, go do stuff, go to a barcade. And we're like, what? Yeah, all right. But then we just all became friends. Our significant others are all friends with each other, and we hang out. We've been hanging out this whole weekend. So, and it's once you're comfortable with your team, it's like I don't have to explain things to him. I could just scribble something on a napkin and hand it to him, and he knows what I mean. And then, Rick can usually read my writing too. So it's like, usually.
Yeah, it's a little weird because this team wasn't really engineered. Like, none of us had done pinball before we were on this team. Like, Rick had done video games with George. That's how he knew him. Keith is Keith. I gotta thank George because, like, when I got hired at Stern as a project lead, I was 23 years old, like, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. It's like, hey, here's a third of our business with our new up-and-coming designer. Have fun. Right, so the fact it worked out is kind of remarkable. But
yeah, it was a weird start because we had another engineer working on Iron Maiden, who's actually the CEO of the JJP now. But he had started engineering on Maiden, and then we hired Harrison. He just trashed all that and started over on doing his own CAD work. And then Rick got hired, and Rick had no idea what he was hired for, what game. So the code name for Iron Maiden was Egypt. So he's like, oh, there's some game named Egypt. And so, it was a couple months before you realized it was actually Iron Maiden. And you're like, oh yeah. And then they just like, he's not going to Maiden's biggest fan. So then that kind of worked out.
Hi guys. Hi, thanks for coming. I just have a general question for like parts availability. I know that obviously you have like all the machines that you develop. You have like the manuals and the parts list, and everything has a part number. I'm just wondering for like older titles, you probably have. I'm assuming you have all the CADs and all the design to manufacture the parts. But for older titles like that have game specific mechs, do you still offer that available for operators and customers to purchase those older parts? Or is it like automobile manufacturing? You only support it for like maybe X number of years, and then it's going to be discontinued, and you don't offer those parts anymore?
The short answer is we'll do our best with what's available. So yes, we do have, I'd say, 95% of our technical documentation all the way back to laser war. We actually just went through a whole digitization effort of it. The challenge comes, right, is like if we don't have something, it has to come from somewhere, and making one of something for a customer is a lot different than making 500 of something. The cost literally 10, 100 X's. You wouldn't believe what these whitewoods cost. So if we have it, yes, you can buy it. If we don't, we'll try our best. Just an anecdotal note, there's this very specific plunger on the Data East Turtles game that like 3 years ago I get a request from our parts sales department. It's like, hey, do we have any of these? And all I got was a part number, and it was like, okay, well, let me go look in the archives. I found the prints, and luckily it was close enough to it was possible to make it out of a part that we had in our current inventory. So I talked to our model shop. We got a one-off made for that customer, shipped it out to him, and that was kind of the end of it. All told, literally this is like part of my not pinball work. We're doing our CAD data migration right now, and it's like about 25,000 part numbers we're maintaining of CAD data. So if you can imagine the warehouse that'd be required to actually stock inventory of all that, it'd be pretty wild. But we do our best, is the short answer.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're 1 minute warning.
Yeah. So last call on questions. Otherwise, we'll kind of be mingling on that area if anyone wants to stop by and chat. But thank you for coming.
Yeah, I want to tell you one thing before you go. Thank you for coming. Thank you for buying Stern Pinballs and allowing us to do what we love to do. But I've been lead sound designer at Stern for the last 10 years, and I bought my first pinball game in 1998. Didn't know anything about pinball, but I loved Twilight Zone, and that was the first game I bought. And then, you know what happens. Then you have to have another and another and another. So I got Addams Family, and then I bought a Fishtails and a Whitewater and a Roadshow. And the thing about those games is I kept seeing this one guy's name on every game, and that's Chris Granner. And he's coming up at 5 o'clock today. And to say he shaped the sound of what I thought pinball sound should be is an understatement. So I encourage you to come back and see his seminar. And he's going to play some things that you've never heard before that he dug up from cassettes and tell you about Indiana Jones and Twilight Zone and Adams. And so please come back or stick around for that. And thank you for coming to see us. Thank you.